I am Andrew Somerville. I am Albion Education, and I am going to talk to you about sightseeing in the UK, places to see. And I was standing outside Eastbourne railway station this morning. It's a lovely summer June day, and it was nice just to stand outside the railway station, and there was a seagull looking hopefully at me on the ground, and in the trees there were a couple of crows and a few pigeons landed looking for something to eat. And I was reminded, looking at the crows in the tree, of an old saying that we have in the UK, that when the crows at the Tower of London disappear, then England will fall. That's a lovely old tradition. And of course, when you visit London and visit the Tower of London, which is a very old castle, you will see the crows at the Tower of London. And that's the story, that the crows are there as long as England is there. And I'm reminded again of another traditional story going back to the time of William the Conqueror. William the Conqueror landed in 1066. He landed on the beaches in the south of England. And one thing he did was to fall over. We can all fall over, and well, when you're the king, it's not a good idea to fall over. So he covered his embarrassment by saying, "Look, I have seized England with my bare hands." He fell over in the sand, and then he grabbed hold of the sand and said, "Look, I have seized England with my bare hands." So there are lots of places to see in the UK, and as I mentioned, William the Conqueror, well, if you are staying in London, you can get a train down to a place called Battle, and that's where there is a historical place called Battle Abbey. That was built where the battlefield site is. It was a thanksgiving for winning the battle. A Benedictine monastery was built called St Michael's Abbey. It's now a ruin, but you can go and visit the place and see the sights. It's a beautiful place to visit. And you can, of course, visit the battlefield where the Battle of Hastings took place. And I'm reminded of my university days going to Scotland. If you have the chance to travel in the UK and visit Scotland, well, there's a lovely rail journey to do from Edinburgh to Dundee. You go across two great railway bridges, and the first is the railway bridge over the Forth River, the second is the railway bridge over the Tay River. And I remember when I was a student, I sat by the banks of the river Tay, and I looked at the Tay Bridge. It was once the longest bridge in the world, and it was in its day a feat of engineering. And what you can see, apart from the lovely bridge built in 1879, you can see the pillars of an earlier bridge. Sadly, that bridge was not properly built, and so it fell down in a storm with a train running over it. So if you go to Dundee, you can visit a museum that tells you all about this railway disaster. But what it taught me was that, you know, rather like the saying of Rudyard Kipling, that life is full of triumphs and disasters, and you have to learn to treat them just the same. And so in the bridges of Dundee, the Tay railway bridges, you have a triumph of engineering in its day that turned into a disaster because it wasn't properly built. And then you had a second, better built bridge, and when you visit you can see both the remains of the old bridge, the pillars of the old bridge, and the new bridge. Now, going back to the south of England, I've mentioned visiting Battle Abbey. There are, of course, lots of lovely seaside towns to visit, all with their history. And then wherever you stay in England, you will probably arrange a day trip to London to see the sights, and that is a lovely city to visit. You arrive in London, I recommend one of the first things to do is to walk along the River Thames. You can see in the picture behind me, you have the River Thames, Westminster Bridge, and you have the Houses of Parliament. So a thing to do at any time of day is to walk to Westminster, stand on Westminster Bridge and wait for Big Ben to chime. That's something that I can't really tell you in a video, but it's lovely to stand on the bridge looking over the water of the River Thames, waiting for the Big Ben to strike the hour. And it's lovely at any time of day, lovely during the day and lovely during the evenings. And once you're in London, walking along the Thames, well, you can walk along the Thames to St Paul's Cathedral. There you have the Millennium Bridge that takes you over the river to South Bank, and you have the modern Tate Gallery. You can go along from there to the Globe Theatre, which is a reconstruction of Shakespeare's theatre. That's a great thing to see. Then you can go further on to Southwark Cathedral, and then you can go on to London Bridge, and there's various things to see around London Bridge. There's the London Experience, which is all about London history. There are the steps going down from London Bridge where the scene was set for Nancy's murder in the book by Charles Dickens, Oliver Twist. Perhaps you've seen the great musical Oliver. It features some of the famous songs of the film, and it's a bit of a classic. It was made in the 1960s. So, after London, you might consider other famous places like Canterbury. You've got Canterbury Cathedral, and then you've got the seaside town Brighton. You've got Winchester. You've got any number of places to visit. Everywhere you go in the UK is worth a visit for a day trip. I can think now of some of the lesser known places. If you visit Hastings, well, there are all the sights to see that you can read in a guidebook, but one of the latest attractions is a restored old church on a hill, and you can walk up to this lovely old ruined church. It's a ruin only because in the 19th century the number of people grew and the church became too small, so they built another church. But this church is a 12th century ruin, and you can go up the tower and have a view all around for about 20 miles. It's on a hill. It's a lovely place to visit. There's a little old graveyard full of interesting inscriptions on the gravestones. So that is a favourite place of mine. I've had one or two questions in presentations that I've done to schools in Ukraine, and children have asked me, what is your favourite place, or what is a favourite place of yours to see? And I've told them that actually it's this little place in Hastings, which is probably not even in the guidebooks yet. So I recommend the UK as a place to visit and a place where there are plenty of sights to see, and just wandering about, discovering places is a great thing to do. I'm reminded again of a lovely walk that you can do if you are lucky enough to catch a train from Edinburgh to a small place called Bridge of Allan. You can get off the train there. There's a lovely pub nearby where you can have a pub lunch, and then you can do a 3-mile walk along the little river called the Allan Water. You can walk 3 miles along this river to a lovely old cathedral town called Dunblane. So there's just a few things, a few suggestions about places to visit and sights to see. And I look forward to meeting you all one day when you visit the UK.